you are having a good day. So I'm practicing for a presentation because on Monday, guys, I'm a GRA. I have to go into my class and essentially present. So I decided, why not practice? Okay. So, hi everyone, my name is Mia and this is my presentation. Is it ethical to incarcerate individuals with a mental illness? As an overview, we'll go into the background, jump into the history of mental illnesses in correctional facilities, and to the alternative practices. So Tony in 2009 found that African American individuals are 6 to 7 times more likely to remain in prison than white individuals, and approximately 17.8% of males and 40.1% of female offenders experience trauma such as emotional or psychological stress because of the prison environment. Approximately 18% of the general population has a mental illness, and an estimated 44% of those in jails and 37% of those in prisons have a mental illness. Therefore, Bark in 2004 noted that in the 1930s, only 1.5% of prisoners in New York City had a mental illness, whereas in 2013, 40% of inmates had a diagnosed mental illness, showing a significant increase over the years. This increase is mostly due to current prison practices and punishments such as solitary confinement, a lack of stability, prison overcrowding, and a lack of knowledge about mental health behavior among correctional officers. In medieval times, people were either beaten, underwent exorcisms, or had a small hole drilled into their skull, all in an effort to treat mental health. In the early to mid 1900s, people with mental health conditions in prison were treated very badly, and most people believed that demons possessed people with a mental health condition, or that the person angered the gods, or that they practiced witchcraft. So some causes of mental illness include prison overcrowding, solitary confinement, and a lack of resources and treatment among correctional officers. So Tripodi and other researchers found that approximately 95% of incarcerated individuals experience trauma once in their life, and the prison environment, especially for first offenders, does not promote positive coping mechanisms like emotional or cognitive coping. So these individuals either engage in behavioral coping due to untreated mental illnesses and the chaotic prison environment. So when mental health symptoms are displayed, offenders may be unwilling to receive treatment because of stigma from fellow inmates, who may view the person with a mental health condition as being weak, so they may make fun of them, or correctional officers may not know what symptoms of untreated mental illnesses look like and believe that the inmates are intentionally misbehaving or faking their mental illness. So welcome to the people who just tuned in. On Monday, I have to go to my GRA's professor class and be like a guest speaker and present this presentation that I'm practicing. So feel free to stay tuned and you can learn some knowledge. I don't have a lot of time to practice today, so I just wanted to go over it one time today. And then obviously throughout the weekend, I'll practice some more. But thank you, Leanne. Thank you for the kind words. Welcome, everybody. I feel like I should start over. Okay, I'm gonna start over because I was talking, I messed myself up. So, guys, when I'm talking, just like my main recommendation, hopefully I'm not talking too fast, and I want to read over my verbal notes and the presentation to make sure I get a hang of everything. So I'm going to start my stopwatch. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mia, and this is my presentation. Is it ethical to incarcerate individuals with a mental illness? As an overview, we'll start with the background, go into the history of mental illnesses in correctional facilities, and end with the alternative practices. So Tony found that African American individuals are 6 to 7 times more likely to remain in prison than white individuals, and approximately 17.8% of males and 40.1% of female offenders experience trauma because of the prison environment. Approximately 18% of the general population has mental illness, and an estimated 44% of those in jails and 37% of those in prisons have a mental illness. Therefore, Bark in 2014 noted that in the 1930s, only 1.5% of prisoners in New York City had a mental illness, whereas in 2013, this number increased to 40% of inmates being diagnosed with a mental illness. This increase is mostly due to current prison practices of punishment, such as solitary confinement, a lack of stability, prison overcrowding, and a lack of knowledge about mental health behavior among correctional officers. So in medieval times, people were either beaten, underwent exorcisms, or had a small hole drilled in their skull, all in an effort to treat mental health. In the early to mid 1900s, people with mental health conditions in prisons were treated very badly. And most people believe that demons possess people with a mental health condition, or that person angered the gods, or that they practiced with witchcraft. So mental health conditions were essentially their punishment. In modern society, causes of mental illnesses within correctional facilities includes prison overcrowding, solitary confinement, and a lack of resources and treatment among correctional officers. So Tripodi and other researchers found that approximately 95% of incarcerated individuals experience trauma at least once in their life. And the prison environment, especially for first-time offenders, do not promote positive coping mechanisms like emotional or cognitive coping mechanisms. So these first time offenders either engage in behavioral coping mechanisms due to untreated mental health conditions and chaotic prison environments. And when behavioral coping is displayed, offenders are either labeled as troublemakers, and if they are diagnosed with a mental health condition within correctional facilities, they may be unwilling to receive treatment because of stigma from fellow inmates. They may fear that their inmates may make fun of them or see them as weak, or correctional officers may not know what symptoms of untreated mental illnesses look like. And if an inmate comes to them and says, "Hey, I think I have a mental health condition," the correctional officers may think that the inmate is lying or intentionally misbehaving just so they could get special treatment. So prison overcrowding. Prison overcrowding is when the prison environment has no sense of safety and stability, resulting in a stressful environment where inmates' lack of control over their daily activities increases the likelihood of violence, aggression, depression, PTSD, poor emotional regulation, and so much more. So looking at this image, inmates are literally living on top of each other, and this causes prisoners to live in inhumane conditions, develop sicknesses, and be prone to fights. So this environment also is vulnerable to loud noises and is harmful for individuals who have a severe mental health condition because they require stability, and this environment does not have stability, as you can see from the image. When an inmate is in solitary confinement, they are in cells for 22 to 24 hours, and they have little to no exposure to sunlight, limited food, and little interaction with other people. And this solitary confinement is used as a form of punishment, and it's done to promote intimidation and fear, and this often causes inmates to develop PTSD, anxiety, and depression. A lack of resources is also a reason why mental illnesses go untreated within correctional facilities. So, as you can see, one inmate said, "Every time I knock on the window, it's pointless because the only thing the doc wants is money. And it's a long time, but I'd rather just wait till I get out." However, once these inmates are released back into society, they don't have health insurance. They don't have the money to visit a doctor, especially a mental illness, a psychiatrist, or a counselor, to receive treatment. So their mental health condition goes untreated once they are back into society. There is also a lack of education and a mental health stigma surrounding correctional officers. So a lack of training about mental health symptoms causes correctional officers to mislabel offenders as being difficult when their symptoms are displayed. So instead of helping them when offenders display mental health conditions, we are instead punishing them. As noted by Shields in 2023, who analyzed 878 correctional officers and found that only 1.9% knew about mental health symptoms and only 8% of correctional officers were willing to receive mental health treatment. This is because these correctional officers viewed mental health as a negative or weakness. Therefore, the correctional officers' unwillingness to receive treatment for their own challenges correlates into this is why you gotta practice, because I gotta write up my verbal notes so it can make sense. Because when I'm reading, like in front of the class, I don't want to be looking down at my iPad too much. Let me write this so it makes more sense. Okay. All right, let me see. What is this? This is a new slide. Let me see something, guys. Oh, I see what I did here. Okay, I see what I did. I had to add a new slide because purpose of the presentation is for me to like, okay, tell the class about this knowledge, but the professor's also like, since it is an ethics class she's teaching, she wants me to ask them questions. So, Osaka. Okay, I see what I did here. I see what I did. So on this slide, I hope these students participate because I'm not going to be thinking them. Okay. So then I have this slide here. You guys could see this slide. If you guys steal it, that's plagiarism. So I have this slide and it says challenges. So Osaka 2004 found that the presence of mental patients in prisons does not only deprive them of their rights to proper treatment and care, but also leads to possible maltreatment and stigmatization. Man, I'm gonna be tongue-tied when I say that. It is an ethical obligation to stop both. So then I have these 3 questions for the class. So I'm going to ask the class after they read the quote, after I read the quote. I'm going to say, do you think it's ethical not to send an offender who committed a heinous crime against a child, woman, or male to a non-traditional prison because of their mental illness? Do you think criminal justice system should forego mandatory sentencing for individuals with a mental health condition? And should they use a determinate sentencing approach where offenders serve a fixed number of years in prisons and have the possibility of being released early if they are actively receiving mental health treatment and improving? So these are just some questions to foster engagement among the students. And then I got like the alternative recommendations and my conclusions. So yeah, I'm going to I definitely do need to practice some more. What I do want to do is I want to go through and like revise my verbal notes, and then this weekend I'm going to practice some more. For the people now tuning in, hey, welcome to the live. I'm Unique Lamia, also known as Mia, a graduate student studying public administration and criminal justice. I'm also a graduate research assistant, so that on Monday, my GRA professor, the professor I'm working with, she wants me to go to her criminal justice undergraduate ethics class and present on this presentation and essentially ask those questions. So I made the presentation. It's my work. Like, I made up those questions. I just like expanded it because then I took this professor in the spring and she liked this topic. So she's the one who's like, okay, maybe you could come and present about this, but also can you like make it more interactive, you could say. So yeah, so like I just need to practice. But the main thing for me with presentations is the verbal notes aspect, because yes, I will be reading from the slide, but I also like to write verbal notes, information that's not on the slide, so I have like additional stuff to say. So if you guys want to like see me practice throughout this weekend some more, definitely subscribe to the channel if you want to like see what I do as a dual degree grad student and figure out how the presentation went on Monday. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and do consider sharing it. I go live daily to every other day. I make days of my life as a graduate student, eat with me's, food reviews, technology video. I try to do a lot, guys. Fashion videos, travel videos when I go places. I woke up this morning, did some schoolwork. I have a writing center appointment at 12, and then I do have to go outside this afternoon. I joined like this criminal justice honor society at my school just because it's supposed to look good on your resume when you apply to like law schools and other PhD schools probably. So today's their first meeting, so I'm gonna go just to see what are you guys about, like what are you actually doing, and if it's something that I'm like, okay, it's not too much and it's something that I can add to my resume that'll look good, then I guess I'll continue on with it. But today's like their first official meeting, so we'll see. At least I didn't pay to join, like, so that's good. So right now, guys, let me edit up these verbal notes really quickly so that way I don't have to do it next time I start practicing, so it'll just be like a smooth read through. But how's everybody's day going? Feel free to leave a comment. Were you productive today? Okay. Introduction. And then another thing that I realized that really helps with verbal notes, when you're writing, you have to give yourself cues. So you have to write something, read what's on slide first, and then read your verbal notes. Or if you want to read your verbal notes first, you have to write that cues, because when you're there in front of the audience, guys, no matter how much you practice, you always mess up a little bit for some reason. Okay, guys, next slide. I'm going to read in, okay, wait, that's the history section. I'm gonna read. But how's everyone doing today? Welcome to the live. Uniquely Mia here. I'm editing my verbal notes right now, and then I guess you guys are sticking around for it. I do not discuss politics on my channel, so yeah, I'm not answering that question. Let's see. Hey Rue, how are you doing today? Glad you could tune in. Right now I'm editing some verbal notes, and then I'm gonna do a run through practice of my presentation. Again, one final time for today. And then Beyonce or Rihanna, they both have good music. It's really hard to choose between both of them. I mean, I like their songs, so I can't choose one. I'll take their income. I know they're both richer than me. I'll be happy if I have even 1% of how much money they have. I'll be rich. So can't really choose. I don't know enough about Drake's or Lil Wayne's music to make a choice between that. Okay, I see what I did here. Okay, guys, let's do a run through one final time. Stop. I like to time myself too. Luckily for this presentation, she's given me like the whole class session, I believe, to do it. So I'm not time like constrained by anything, but let's get into it. Oops. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mia, and this is my presentation. Is it ethical to incarcerate individuals with a mental illness? As an overview, we'll start with a background, the history of mental illnesses in correctional facilities, and end with the alternative practices. So Tony found that African American individuals are 6 to 7 times more likely to remain in prison than white individuals, and approximately 17.8% of males and 40.1% of female offenders experience trauma such as emotional or psychological stress because of the prison environment. Approximately 18% of the general population has a mental illness, and an estimated 44% of those in jails and 37% of those in prisons have a mental illness. Bark in 2014 noted that in the 1930s, only 1.5% of prisoners in New York City had a mental illness, whereas in 2013, 40% of inmates had a diagnosed mental illness, showing a significant increase over the years. This increase is mostly due to current prison practices of punishment such as solitary confinement, a lack of stability, prison overcrowding, and a lack of knowledge about mental health behavior among correctional officers. In medieval times, people were either bitten, underwent exorcisms, or had a small hole drilled in their skull, all in an effort to treat mental health. In the early to mid 1900s, people with mental health conditions in prisons were treated very badly, and most people believed that demons possessed people with mental health conditions, or that those individuals angered the gods, or that they practiced witchcraft, and therefore a mental health condition was those individuals' punishments. Some causes of mental illnesses within the correctional facility in modern society includes prison overcrowding, solitary confinement, and a lack of resources and treatment among correctional officers. So Tripodi and other researchers found that approximately 95% of incarcerated individuals experience trauma once in their life. And the prison environment, especially for first-time offenders, do not have positive coping mechanisms like emotional or cognitive. So they either engage in behavioral coping mechanisms due to untreated mental illnesses and the chaotic prison environment. When behavioral coping is displayed, offenders are either labeled as troublemakers, so they don't receive help. And when mental health symptoms are displayed, offenders may be unwilling to receive treatment because of one, stigma from fellow inmates. They may fear that inmates will see them as weak and pick on them or make fun of them. And correctional officers may not know what the symptoms of untreated mental illnesses look like and believe that the inmates are intentionally misbehaving or faking their mental illness to receive treatment. Therefore, the correctional officers aren't going to help them. So one of the main causes, as mentioned, of mental health conditions within correctional facilities includes prison overcrowding. And prison overcrowding is when the prison environment has no sense of safety and stability, resulting in a stressful environment where inmates' lack of control over their daily activities increases likelihood of violence, aggression, depression, PTSD, anxiety, poor emotional regulation, and so much more. So overcrowding causes prisoners to live in inhumane conditions. They can develop sicknesses and be prone to fights. This environment includes living in loud noises, and this is harmful for people who have a severe mental illness because they require stability. Looking at this image, inmates are literally living on top of each other, and this image was taken in 2007 from California, or in California. Another cause of mental illness among offenders includes solitary confinement. Solitary confinement occurs when inmates are in a cell for 22 to 24 hours with little to no exposure to sunlight, limited food, and little interaction with other people. And solitary confinement is used as a form of punishment, intimidation, and fear, and it causes inmates to develop PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Another factor is a lack of resources. So offenders are often unwilling to receive treatment because they lack money to pay, are intimidated, or they know that they won't receive proper care. One inmate said, "Every time I knock on the window, it is pointless because the only thing the doc wants is money. And it's a long time, but I'd rather just wait until I get out." However, when inmates are released back into society, they often don't have health insurance or money to pay for doctor visits. So therefore, they're not going to receive treatment when they get outside, when they're released from prison, because they're more concerned about getting a job and following their parole guidelines, so they're not reincarcerated. There's also a lack of education about mental health stigma and symptoms, and there's a stigma about mental health that correctional officers have. So a lack of training about mental health symptoms, such as behavioral cues, causes correctional officers to mislabel offenders as being difficult when they display symptoms. So instead of helping these offenders, as mentioned earlier, they are instead punishing them. So Shields and other researchers analyzed 878 correctional officers and found that only 1.9% knew about mental health symptoms, and only 8% of correctional officers were willing to receive mental health treatment. So these correctional officers themselves, they're unwilling to receive mental health treatment. Therefore, when they go into correctional facilities and an inmate comes to them and tells them, "Hey, I think I may have a mental health condition," the correctional officer's own unwillingness to receive treatment correlates or causes them to say, "You as an offender, you don't need to receive treatment since I'm not receiving treatment," and therefore that offender does not receive treatment within prison. So let's go into some challenges and some questions for the audience. So Osaka in 2004 found that the presence of mental patients in prisons does not only deprive them of their rights to proper treatment and care, but also leads to possible maltreatment and stigmatization. It is an ethical obligation to stop both. However, do you think it is ethical not to send an offender who committed a heinous crime against a child, woman, or male to a non-traditional prison because of their mental illness? Second question is, do you think criminal justice systems should forego mandatory sentencing for individuals with a mental health condition? And should they use a determinate sentencing approach when offenders serve a fixed number of years in prisons? And should these offenders have the possibility of being released early if they are actively receiving mental health treatment and improving? So some alternative recommendations. What can be done? Because we spoke about all the bad that prisons are doing that's not helping offenders. So what can we do moving forward? Moving forward, we can ensure that stability is present. Stability can be established by providing offenders with daily activities so they can either establish a routine which can provide individuals with a mental health condition with a sense of safety. We can also implement trauma-informed practices, and these trauma-informed practices discourages the negative shaming of inmates and advocates for mental health practices. So Van During and Van der Wolf found that approximately 50% of offenders who engage in trauma-informed practices where the victim and the offender spoke to each other resulted in an increase in the victim's well-being, meaning that the victims were able to understand why they were chosen by the offender, and the offender was able to understand the consequences of their action. And this allowed the offender to receive treatment, and this encouraged, not allowed. So you gotta read. And this encouraged the offender to receive treatment for their mental health disorders and substance abuse addictions. Another practice that can be implemented moving forward are mental health courts. Mental health courts are problem-solving courts that are focused on offenders with severe mental illnesses and exist to separate inmates while they are incarcerated by exposing them to psychiatrists to reduce recidivism. And other researchers discovered that when offenders were exposed to mental health courts, they experienced higher life satisfaction and reduced recidivism, with 26% of participants being less likely to obtain a new charge when released, and 56% of offenders being less likely to commit a violent crime once they were re-released. Okay. I don't gotta read the conclusion, that's the last slide. Okay, that's the presentation. Wait. Okay, all my sources are cited. Good. I definitely do have to practice some more. What time is I at? I was at 10 minutes. Well, it's not bad. So I just need to, when I practice again, I'm just gonna like speak slower, like my mom would say, and then make sure I'm gonna have to go through what I'm gonna do again before I practice. I'm not gonna practice anymore on live at least, but I'll definitely practice tomorrow. What I'm gonna do is like go through my verbal notes again, edit that to make sure the grammar is right and that I can read it, because I feel like I've been looking down a lot, but I don't want to do that. I want to look at the audience too a little bit. So yeah. I don't know, Country Kid. I might end it now. I might end it in 5 minutes. I don't like telling myself. I don't like telling the audience when I'm going to end the live, because as soon as I say it, I may regret it. We are talking about correctional facilities. Yeah, mental health conditions among offenders within correctional facilities. No. Like, when I do presentations, at least for this class, like, if you committed a heinous crime, guys, if somebody did something terrible, like shooting your parents, yes, you should be incarcerated. You should be punished for that. You should not be released inside, because at the end of the day, who gave you the right to do something horrendous like that? But we should understand, at least in American society, we say the goal of imprisonment is 1, punishment for the offender for their crime, 2, deterrence, and 3, rehabilitation. So currently in society, when individuals are incarcerated, based on what I learned and my interpretation of everything I learned, in the American justice system, we focus a lot on punishment, but rehabilitation isn't at the forefront of it. So I'm not an advocate per se of offenders. I believe if you commit a crime, you deserve to be incarcerated, you deserve prison. But at the same time, if America's gonna say our goal of imprisonment is rehabilitation, the criminal justice system should hire competent individuals who know how to help these individuals rehabilitate and provide them with resources to help them rehabilitate. And in my research, one area where we were lacking, or are lacking, because it hasn't been fixed yet, based on my research, has not been fixed, is the resources regarding mental health treatment among offenders in prisons. Because most offenders in prison, obviously somebody can wake up one day and be like, I'm going to commit this crime. They could do that. They could wake up, say, I don't want to be free anymore, or I just feel like committed a crime, and they want to commit a crime. They could do it. But 9 times out of 10, if you do research, when somebody commits a crime, there were indicators prior to them committing that crime. They were either juvenile delinquents, meaning they committed crimes before they turned 18, whether they got caught for it or whether they didn't get caught for it, they committed those crimes, or they experienced some type of abuse as a child, or they experienced some type of trauma, even if it wasn't necessarily abuse. So mental health and mental illnesses, we definitely do. Correctional facilities in America definitely need to allocate more money for that. And if they do that, that can definitely aid in the rehabilitation aspect of it. So yeah, so when I give presentations, more so on the criminal justice, I always like to put that disclaimer, because one thing I have noticed, I don't know if it's just my degree at my school or my curriculum, through learning about criminal justice, in a way, I don't know, they somewhat teach us to empathize with offenders. So I always have to put that disclaimer out there, because sometimes when people start in the middle of, like, if they came into the live in the middle of my presentation, they may think, oh, she's an advocate. She doesn't think somebody should be incarcerated if they committed a heinous crime. That is far from the truth. You should be incarcerated if you commit a crime, and if it's a terrible crime. But if the American justice system wants to say we're focused on rehabilitation, they need to provide more money to focus on rehabilitation, which they do not do. Do you know, to become a correctional officer, you just need to be 18 years or older? They may have raised it to 21, regardless. If it's 18 or 21, and all you need is a high school diploma to become a correctional officer, that is not good. That is not appropriate at all. That needs to change, because when you're 18 to 21, your brain's not fully developed. They say your brain is fully developed at like 25, or like in your early 30s. That's when they say your brain really becomes fully developed. So just imagine an 18 or 21-year-old with just a high school degree being in charge of offenders who committed heinous crimes, or just who committed a crime in general. That's not good. That education, that's not good at all. So it's understandable why our justices, at least why recidivism or recrime rates among individuals who are released are so high. It's understandable why that happens. So y'all, that's just my take on it. If you guys do the research, if you do research, even if you're not in graduate school, if you do research on the internet, you will see what I'm saying has some truth to it. It's just easier, and it's just easier for me to like pick out that type of information from my brain, since I'm exposed to it almost every day in some shape or form, in a class or when I'm writing my own research paper. What hearts? What are you talking about? But yeah, so far in my criminal justice, no, I'm not going to do it today in class. No, I'm not practiced up enough. I need to practice this. Over the weekend, I'll practice this maybe like by 5 times, at least before Monday. I'm presenting on Monday. I'm going to be presenting it to an undergrad class, just like so that they can learn about this information, and I'm hoping they know this information. They're seniors. Yeah, they're in a capstone class, I think. So they should know this information already. So like, that's why I use terms like recidivism. You as an audience may not know that because you're not a criminal justice individual. Recidivism essentially means recrime. The likelihood that somebody who went to prison before, when they release back into society, are they going to commit a crime again? That's what recidivism is. Yeah, country kid, what's your favor? Well, I can't say yeah, but tell me what your favor is, and I may consider it. And then deterrence, that's a criminal justice term. There's specific deterrence, general deterrence. Specific deterrence is basically saying, me, if I were ever incarcerated, which is never going to happen, but let's say I was incarcerated for a crime, specific deterrence is me not committing that crime again because I experienced that punishment directly. General deterrence is saying, me as an individual in society, I'm not going to commit a crime because I watch the news, I know the laws, you watch movies, and you see what happens to people who are incarcerated. So it's like me, so saying general deterrence is me as a criminal justice researcher saying I'm not committing a crime because I conduct research on the topic and I understand what these offenders go through and what they experience. So those are some new terms for you guys. There's a difference between jail and prison, guys. Anytime I hear somebody in a movie use the words for the wrong term now, I'm like, that's so incorrect, just because I learned the definition of it. And so when somebody goes to jail, guys, jail is less than a year. Prison is more than a year. So if you ever watch a movie and the actor is saying, yeah, my friend is in jail for 5 years, they're in prison. They're not in jail, guys. You cannot be in jail for 5 years. because jail is less than 1 year. Prison is more than a year. So remember that, because anytime I watch a movie now, I'm like, you said they're in jail for 5 years. That's not possible. They have to be in prison. They can't be in jail for 5 years. That doesn't make sense. So remember that, guys. Remember that. Okay, what did Country Kid say? Okay, sure, Country Kid. Hi, G. Welcome to the live. What's another term that I can tell you, another criminal justice term? We went over recidivism. We went over jail and prison. We went over deterrence. Yeah, those are the one that's coming into my head now. Obviously, there's more, but I don't really remember right now. Hey, Z, but topics I have conducted research on. I've written a lot of research papers. One day I feel like I'm going to put my papers in a book and publish it. Would you guys buy it? Because I did a lot of research, man. I wrote about the broken windows theory, like a full research paper about that. Forgot about that for a while. I did that, though, a few years ago. I do a lot about mental illness among offenders, just because I feel like mental illness is an interesting topic, just because like there's a lot of stigma around it in society. So that's why I guess I like researching about it so much. And two, they have a lot of information about that. Guys, when you are writing a research paper, you need to choose a topic that is broad, because you'll have a lot of sources, and then you need to then narrow it down. So yeah, that's just my tip on that. And there's a lot of information about mental illness. I'm writing about recidivism right now. I wrote about juvenile delinquency in January. In the future, I'm writing a short paper now that I'll submit for a class, but I think for like one of the capstone projects that I have to do, I think I may be writing about female offenders. I say may just because it's an interesting topic. Like I've never conducted research on female offenders, but there's a reason for that. There's not a lot of research out there. And for my capstone class, I'm not choosing a topic where there's not a lot of sources to support my work. So that's why I'm still like debating on that. Okay. What's another word for foretold? Prophecy. Z said, I don't know who that is. Welcome to the live, guys. There's a lot of criminal justice like cases that I don't necessarily know about, but just because like I do enough reading and enough research as is, guys. So I don't really look outside of that if it's not a required class assignment. Because most cases, guys, most criminal justice topics, they do overlap. Even if it's a different case that happened in a different decade, it's the same issue that's coming up again. So, yeah, I don't research criminal justice topics for fun. Whatever I read in criminal justice, whatever I research about, I did it because it's for an assignment. And I just expanded on it for you guys a little bit sometimes. So, yeah. But that's the presentation. I'm going to practice some more tomorrow. I would do it today, but like I said, for the people who were here earlier, I do have to go outside. I do actually have a writing center appointment at 12, but like around this afternoon too, I have to go outside because I think I joined the Criminal Justice Society. I say think. I'm not going to tell you why I think before they charge me for it, but like I think I joined. So they sent me the email. They added me to the group me, so I want to go to the first meeting. This is their first meeting, so I'm going to go today just to see, okay, is this something that I can add to my resume if I participate? And two, if I participate, how much stuff they're going to make me do? Because, like, I'm okay doing more. Actually, I'm okay joining organizations, but one, I have to be like, okay, is it going to benefit me in some way? Is it something I can add to my resume? Or is it this? So we'll see how that goes. And I'm making a full-length YouTube video about this week or about these past 2 days, so stay tuned for that video, guys. What are you talking about, Z? You know what, Z? If that's a topic of interest to you, you could conduct that research. You could research that too, like on your own time. if you're telling me to do that, I'm not doing that because that's not a topic that I'm interested in researching about. But if you want to do that and write like a literature review paper about that, you can definitely do that. And then if you do that, maybe you can post a YouTube video. So drop your channel name, we'll subscribe to you, and we'll be on the lookout for that research if that's a topic that you're interested in, Z. Okay, guys, so I think I'm gonna log off because I do want to go. I have writing center at 12. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go shower, and then I'll go to my writing center appointment. I'll take a break, and then I'll go outside. Fridays are definitely like a slow day for me, and it's definitely gonna become a little slower because one of my classes are ending or is ending in practically 2 weeks. So because next week is the review week, the week after that is exam week, and then we're done. So I'll be finished with one of my classes early this semester. If it's God's will, I get an A and above in that class. So we will see what happens. Just try your best, guys, as my mom will say. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this topic. It was a topic of discussion, but thank you guys so much for tuning into this live. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As always, I enjoy going live for you guys. Please, 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 guys, consider please consider liking the video, sharing, subscribing to the channel, guys. I would greatly, greatly appreciate your support. I'm on this journey to 2,000 subscribers, and I'm trying to get monetized, guys. I have yet to be monetized. Hitting 1,000 subs was just the first step. I still need to get to 4,000 community watch hours. I only have like 3,400. I only have until December, guys, to get to 2,000, to 3,000, wait, no, to 4,000 watch hours. So please, 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 guys, go and watch some of my full-length YouTube videos. Share my full-length YouTube videos. Share my channel to your friends, guys, to your family members. If they like fashion, if they like travel, if they like food, if they like education, if they just like seeing somebody else's life. If you want to be nosy, guys, if you want to be nosy and see what somebody else does on the daily, share my channel because I'm sharing what I do on the daily with you guys. So it's okay to be nosy. I'm giving you a free pass. So just share it and like my videos, watch my videos, guys. I would greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate your support. And I'll be back with more YouTube videos and YouTube live videos soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye. See you soon. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. Share my channel, please.